looking forward to the question and answer session afterwards. Enjoy the seminar. And it's over to you, Ian.
Thank you, Anya. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be with you all again. I hope that everyone had a good summer and are all refreshed for the rest of the year ahead. So, as Anya said this morning, we're going to talk about the revised CPR, the revised Construction Products Regulation, and its impact on us as an industry, impact on you as a manufacturer, supplier, distributor, or actor in the supply chain of this wonderful product we have called bitumen. So let's start with a little bit of history. Those of you that know me know that I'm very keen on history. I do like to understand where things have come from. Now, we've already explained what the Construction Products Regulation is. Its predecessor, prior to 2011, was the Construction Products Directive. And it's important that we understand the difference between those two things. Directives carry no legal weight, but when we move to a regulation, they become a legal document and they become mandatory on all of the member states within Europe. The first version of the Construction Products Regulation was adopted in 2011. So it's been operational for about 13 years. But as with all these things, it takes a little time before it's between it being adopted as a legal instrument and it entering into force. So formally, it came into force in 2013. And its aim was to make the European internal market work properly for construction products. And it's important. One of the aims of the European Union is to ensure the free circulation of goods within that internal market, and there should be no barriers to trade. It's fundamental to the way that the European Union works. So for us, it should not matter whether we're bitumen producers in France, Italy, Spain, Germany, the Netherlands, or anywhere else within Europe. The aim of the Construction Products Regulation is to make sure that bitumen as a construction product can freely move around that internal market, and that's fundamental to the operation of the European Union. How does it do that? Well, underneath the Construction Products Regulation are all of the what I would call the mechanical documents, all of the documents that make that internal market work. And one of those things is establishment of harmonized conditions for construction products. And for us, that means harmonized product standards. So our product standards should be no different if we're operating in Germany, or if we're operating in Italy or France or the Netherlands or Belgium or anywhere else, or Spain, anywhere else across Europe. So it establishes that harmonized level of conditions for construction products. And it's important to remember that the CPR, the Construction Products Regulation, is a legal document. So it is adopted into the legislature of each individual country. So it becomes a binding document. It's legal. Operating outside of the Construction Products Regulation is not allowed. So why do we need to revise it? Well, after 10 years, 10 or 11 years, we realized that there were some issues. It wasn't working exactly as it should. So the smooth functioning of the internal market wasn't quite right. It wasn't perfect. Amongst the obstacles to that were the continued presence of certain national marks and national certification schemes. Now, within the UK, we have a thing called the BSI kite mark, which is an additional level of specification, but it's a national mark. So that wasn't quite right. In France, there were the Avis Technique, etc. So they set separate requirements on products, and that's not that can get in the way of the smooth functioning of that internal market. It can potentially disrupt or slow down the free movement of goods across the internal market. So it hadn't achieved its stated aim in making sure that there were no national marks and there were no barriers to trade. The other thing that became quite apparent was that market surveillance and enforcement was inconsistent across the EU. Some member states would apply the surveillance principles very rigorously, and others adopted a slightly less rigorous approach. So if we're going to have a system which allows the free movement of goods across Europe, we need to make sure that we have a surveillance program in place that ensures that it does exactly that. So that needed to be addressed. One of the reasons that the market surveillance was ineffective was across Europe, different member states used different legislative bodies to monitor the system, so it was ineffective. There were some quality issues that were present. There were some technical issues within the regulation itself, and perhaps one of the biggest things was the issue of legal clarity. It wasn't an easy document to understand. Most legislation isn't, but the construction products regulation really did suffer from that, and there were some unclear and inconsistent rules applied. So against that history, it was decided to revise the construction products regulation. How did that happen? Well, first draft was published back in March 2022, so a little over 2 years ago, and it came out for a public consultation, and so there were lots of comments that were submitted. EUB3730 provided comments into that revision process, and then as with all documents, it goes into a comments resolution process, and new drafts are issued, and it goes slowly through this legal process. Now, within that, once that process was completed, it's then left to the big institutions of the European Union, which is the European Council, the European Parliament, and the European Commission, to come to a consensus and agree the final document. And that process is called a trilogue, because there are those three institutions that are involved in it. And in December 2023, we got an early Christmas present. So that trilogue process was completed, and then the final draft was prepared to go through the European Council and be voted upon formally. That was done in summer this year, and we expect the final publication of the construction products regulation in really about 10 days time. So on the 20th of September, we expect it to be finally published, and then it will come into force in November 2024. What then does that mean for us as suppliers and distributors and actors in the supply chain of bitumen? Well, Once the document, the Construction Products Regulation, is cited in a publication called the OJEU, which is the official journal of the European Union, that is effectively a register of all published legislation across the EU. Once a document is published there, it becomes legal. Now, the immediate impact for us is that all of those standards that come underneath the Construction Products Regulation, and for us that really means the product standards. That's our product standards for bitumen, polymer modified bitumen, hard paving grade bitumens, bitumen emulsions, and all those other bitumen and bituminous binder standards. They will need to comply with the new Construction Products Regulation. However, there is an issue that we face in that we are currently going through preparing for revision of those standards, and the first thing that we need to do as an industry is to make sure that our standardization request, which is the thing that will drive the revision of the product standards, complies with the new version of the Construction Products Regulation. So there will be something of a delay for us until we get this standardization request prepared and approved and compliant with the new Construction Products Regulation. So that's the first thing that we need to do, and it's kind of an immediate impact because it affects everything that we do in preparation for the delivery of our new product standards. 12 months after that, all the other elements of the Construction Products Regulation will come into force, apart from penalties for non-compliance, which is covered in Article 92 of the Construction Products Regulation, and that will come in 24 months after publication. So we have some preparatory work to do. We need to make sure that our standardization request complies with the new Construction Products Regulation, and then once that is done, then our new product standards will need to comply with the new Construction Products Regulation. So there are some key dates that we need to meet. So what's different? What's different with the new CPR compared to the old one? Well, in the 10 or 11 years since it was published, we have seen developments out there at really quite an alarming pace. That we are focused on much more on environmental sustainability, on the greenhouse effect, on carbon, and the EU is acutely aware of that. And so the new CPR is integrated with the European Green Deal. And that's fundamental to the way that the European Union aims to operate. And that's to have a strategy for a sustainable built environment. So anything that we construct, whether it's an asphalt pavement or a house or an office block, needs to be aligned with this strategy for the sustainable built environment. We don't want to do anything that is not sustainable. Also, in the 10 years, we've moved forward in terms of digitalization. Smartphones are the norm. Email communication is the norm. We now have things like artificial intelligence and ChatGPT that have really accelerated our digital transition. So we do everything digitally now, almost everything anyway. And the old CPR didn't really take that into account. So so it now puts a lot more focus on digital transition, communicating digitally, not relying on paper copies of everything. And it also then provides much more power to the European Commission to impose penalties if member states are found or stakeholders are found not to be in compliance with the CPR. And remembering what I said about the market surveillance not being fully not being applied equally across Europe, well, there's now much more relevance on market surveillance within the new CPR. So those are the differences. Those are the key things that have changed. So what does it mean for us? Well, I've already mentioned that there will be some impacts with regard to standardization, with regard to our product standards. Well, what does it mean? Well, let's have a look at the old CPR just for a moment. The old CPR, within its Annex 1, set out some what were called basic works requirements, which is what needs to be addressed in our product standards. So, and I will say where relevant. Okay, so the first thing is mechanical resistance and stability, and those are all the properties that we would associate with bitumen. So it's stiffness, which we measure through needle penetration. It's elevated temperature properties, which we address through ring and ball softening point, etc. And then we've got safety in case of fire, hygiene, health of the environment, accessibility and use, protection against noise. It's not really relevant for us as a bitumen industry. Energy consumption, heat retention, sustainable use of natural resources. So there were, excuse me. So there were 7 basic works requirements in the original CPR. In the new version of the CPR, there are 8, and the thing to focus on really is the terminology has changed. So instead of mechanical stability, we've now got structural integrity. Instead of instead of noise, it's now resistance to the passage of sound and acoustic properties. So there are some changes there, and it's also introduced the sustainable use of natural resources and construction work. So we now have 8 basic works requirements that we will need to address when we're drafting our new standards. So there is another thing within the new construction products regulation, and bear in mind this is kind of aligned with what I said about the Green Deal and focusing on environmental sustainability. There is an Annex 2 of the new CPR refers to predetermined environmental essential characteristics, and these will need to be included in our standardization request, and they will find their way through to our product standards in the end. Now, it's based on an existing document called EN15804, which sets the framework for the development of product category rules for construction products, and it lists a number of individual indicators for environmental impact. So we will need to include that, and that's very important that we do. But within the this Annex 2, there is an intent for the European Commission to make available software, and that's for you to use, to perform the calculation of those environmental impacts. And again, it's there to try and establish a level of consistency across the industry for determination of environmental impacts. And there's another change. We have Annex 3, which covers product requirements. This covers both the appropriate functioning and performance of the product when it's in the construction works. So that would be in an asphalt pavement, in a roofing or waterproofing membrane, or any other construction product. There are inherent product safety requirements. This means that we shouldn't be placing onto the market anything that is unsafe to use by the the people that are placing the construction product, or once it's placed as well. It shouldn't release any materials which could compromise the safety of the workers or the users, and inherent product environmental requirements. So the asphalt pavement, for example, should not release material into water, into air, or anywhere else in the environment. And that's new compared to the old construction products regulation. So what are the impacts for us when it comes for information sharing? We've got our big document, the construction products regulation. In the future, we will have our standardization request, and then we will have our new product standards. Well, what does it mean for us as an industry, or for you as actors in the supply chain? What does it mean to us in terms of the information that we actually have to share? Well, there is a fundamental change here. So under the existing construction products regulation, we are required to produce a declaration of performance. And from that declaration of performance, it allows us to produce our CE mark, which we can apply to the delivery documentation, because we can't actually put a CE mark on onto the bitumen itself. And we have our declaration of performance. That's what we've been doing for the past 10 or 11 years. Now, under the new CPR, the revised CPR, we will have a combined declaration of performance and conformity. So there's an important change there. What does it mean? What does the combined declaration of performance and conformity look like? Well, it will link our essential characteristics, the structural integrity part of it, and the product requirements that are covered in Annex 3. So instead of just listing our mechanical properties, if you like, or our structural properties, penetration, ring and ball softening point, etc., we'll need to combine those environmental requirements as well. And a critical change, and a forward-thinking change, really, is that supply of that declaration, the combined declaration of performance and conformity, the intention is to do that digitally. And if you look at the old CPR, the preference was to do it in hard copy, so on paper. Now, it's just an indication of how far we've moved in our digital transition, that in that 10 years now, digital transfer is preferred, whereas 10 years ago, paper and hard copy was preferred. So digital transition as well. So a different format for the declaration of conformity, a performance and conformity, and the fact that it is now intended to be supplied digitally. Just a little bit more on content. You can see what I've highlighted there on what needs to be included on that declaration of performance and conformity, and that includes things like the environmental sustainability across its life cycle in relation to those predetermined environmental characteristics which we listed in Annex 2, which come from that EN15804 document. What are the predetermined environmental characteristics? They need to cover all those environmental characteristics from Annex 2, 15804, but the focus is on the life cycle as well. And we will have some decisions to make on the life cycle. So there's a lot of change to our existing declaration of performance to transition to the declaration of performance and conformity. So let's just summarize what the changes are. So we're now combining performance and conformity, performance related to structure, conformity related to environmental and other aspects. That will need to be declared, and we can supply that now digitally as a preferred option. So we don't need to produce hard copy of declarations of performance and conformity. We can supply that digitally, and we can do that with the digital product passport scheme operating within the EU. With regard to the to CE marking, well, not a significant change, other than the fact it says that no other marking other than the CE mark can be applied on the declaration of performance and conformity. As previously, we are required to place the CE mark onto the product if that is possible. If not, onto a label that's attached to the product or the accompanying documents. Now, as we know, we can't apply a CE mark directly to bitumen, so it has to go to onto the accompanying documents. That could be delivery documents, etc. So not a significant change there. So, what about the timing of the new CPR? When are we going to start to feel the impacts? Well, there are different timelines for different indicators, but we will need to address, for example, things like global warming potential and include that within our product standards from autumn 2025. However, I do need to qualify that a little, and that is in relation to the process or the timeline, if you like, for developing our new product standards. And this is something that we do have to do, but we can't start the process of revising our standards until we have developed and approved our standardization request. And our standardization request is the thing that will allow us to develop our product standards. We expect the standardization request process to start probably in the second half of 2025, and the clock will start to tick from then in relation to how long it takes for us to develop our new product standard, our new harmonized product standards. And remember, it's the harmonized product standard that allows free circulation, free movement of goods within the European Union. And we expect that process to take probably until around 2030. We expect the new product standards to come out. So we have a little bit of a delay, if you like, where we will have to wait until our existing harmonized standards come into place. So there are some processes that we need to go through, but that we expect the first thing to happen is the standardization request work starts in 2025, and from then we work through to our new harmonized standards. What other impacts have we got? Well, we have the digital products passport. As I said, there's a big focus on digitalization within the new CPR. It also aligns with the eco-design principles within the European Union, and has not previously directly applied to construction products. And very important is that the Commission, the European Commission, can intervene if the CPR conditions are not met or are implemented against the agreement to achieve that internal market and free movement of goods. So, in summary, what does it mean? What does it mean for us? Well, the first thing that we'll see is that new CPR should ensure that the internal market within the European Union is fully aligned. So I will come back to the comment that I made before. So it doesn't matter which member state that you are in. Bitumen as a product should be able to freely circulate all the way across Europe without any barriers. That's what it aims to achieve, and the existing CPR didn't really manage to do that. It will incorporate the Green Deal, and the impact really is that inclusion of predetermined environmental characteristics or predetermined environmental impacts will need to be included, and it's important that is acknowledged in a legal document like the Construction Products Regulation, because it puts specific requirements on industries, stakeholders, to keep a focus on green issues and sustainability right at the forefront of everything that we do. And then it will accommodate the digital transition. It will allow us to supply our product documents, our combined declaration of performance and conformity via digital means. And that just means that we're up to date now. The old CPR really wasn't up to date, and technology just tends to advance at an incredible rate. So we're fully aligned there with progress digitally. Sustainability, environmental sustainability, and health and safety will be a much more important under the new CPR. We have to incorporate things on sustainability within our product standards, for example. But it's important to remember that our product standards, so our bitumen product standards that we have at the moment, so EN 12591 for paving grade bitumens, EN 13924 parts 1 and 2 for hard paving and special bitumens, EN 14023 for polymer modified bitumens, EN 13808 for bituminous emulsions, and EN 15322 for cutback and flux bitumens. They cannot be updated until we have our new standardization request available. So you won't necessarily see significant changes to product standards and things that you have to do on a day-to-day basis until that standardization request becomes available and until the new harmonized standards are developed. But we within EUB3730 will keep you informed of those changes as and when they arise. So it is quite a fundamental change to the Construction Products Regulation. It incorporates a lot of things on green issues and digital transition, a lot of focus on environmental sustainability and health and safety, and it should lead to much more even and consistent functioning of that internal market. And that's very important for how the European Union operates. Its entire principle is that goods and services should move freely across that internal market. I'm kind of coming to the end of this session now on the revised CPR. if you need more information, please feel free to contact any member of the team. Our details are there on the slide in front of you. You can also find our details on our new website. Please feel free to contact us. We are there to assist you and to help you through all of this. So do feel free to give us, send us an email, give us a call, drop us a WhatsApp message, and we'll do what we can to assist you. And finally, from me, I just want to thank you for your attention. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now, and we're ready to take some questions and feedback.